Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. It's a pleasure to have you here. My name is Renee. I'm a medical radiography medical student, and I'm in my third year right now. And apart from my studies, I'm also a professional medical writer. And today, I have an amazing guest speaker. Hey, Renee, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, my name is Michelle Renee Akers. I have a Doctor of Pharmacy degree from Mercer University, and I was a practicing pharmacist for 30 years.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So, um, Rennie, could you, briefly explain what medical writing is to someone that is new into this field?
Well, when I was looking at medical writing, for me, it was the ability for me to communicate information that would help people, mainly for my patients. For many years when I practiced, I had pharmacy students, and we would work on projects together where they would provide written patient information specific for patients that we were seeing in the pharmacy. And I really enjoyed working with the students to provide that. Patients really need information about their diseases, the medicines that they're taking, what types of things they need to consider when they're deciding to take a medicine or not. So it was very eye-opening to me to find how patients really responded to having information, not only just verbal, but something written that they could take with them home to discuss with their physician or their family and to make their decisions. So I thought to myself, well, gosh, I would love to do this for the public at large. So I also published information in my local newspaper for our task force that we have locally that focuses on substance abuse prevention. And so just writing articles to explain to people why they need to lock up their medicines, why they need to be an example to their children about how to store medicines, what's appropriate for taking medications, why they shouldn't just take medicines from other people. So lots of things that we have written about in our community. So I really, as a beginning medical writer, I had all those things in my history that I transitioned over to make it something that I could do for a career. And I've really enjoyed it. I've been doing it since 2021. And it's been a good experience for me personally, and then also professionally. Just it's opened up so much more for me, meeting people from all over the world, and being able to go to medical writer meetings. It's been very good for me personally and professionally.
That's amazing, Rennie. Really, really amazing. Thank you so much for explaining that. I believe that people that are new in this field will know what medical writing is all about. So tell us, there is a difference between being a medical writer and also being a health writer. What is the difference?
Well, I look at being a medical writer as someone who has some sort of practice experience. Um, Now, that may not necessarily be so for writers. They may have experience as far as their education or even talking to other people who are practitioners. But for me, medical writing is specifically bringing my practice experience to my writing, so that I can communicate things that I feel that people really want to know. And like I said, my patients during all those years that I practiced, they they would come from the doctor or from getting a test done and just not really know what was involved. And they wouldn't understand their disease state. They wouldn't understand, like, why is the doctor doing this, or why do I have to go through this? So it's really important that patients understand that whole process, because they need to be able to make decisions for themselves, good decisions. And so just thinking back over all those years, about a good example would be maybe birth control. There's so much out there to choose from. What's good for this person's lifestyle? What's important to them? What side effects do they not want to tolerate? What side effects can they tolerate? So giving them that information in a verbal and a written form can really help them to make a good decision for themselves. And it not only saves them a lot of stress and trouble with dealing with side effects, or dealing with, expensive medicines that maybe they really didn't want, that they didn't really want in the first place, to also helping them be compliant. Because if you've already had a side effect to a certain medication in a class, you have to really do some talking to talk a patient into trying something different. So if you can get them on the right path to begin with, it helps them a lot with their compliance, feeling like that they want to take the medicine and continue with their therapy. So and plus the things I've learned in practice, a good example would be maybe cholesterol medicine. Some people would have an impression that, oh, I've taken this for 6 months and my cholesterol is good, so I don't have to take it anymore. So that's a big chunk of information that patient didn't have, and that can affect their outcome. And so as a medical writer, those small little points of saying this will be a medication that you more than likely will have to take as long as you and your doctor agree to take this, possibly for a lifetime, in order to keep the preventative effects of the medicine in place. So that little piece, just knowing that from experience, that people maybe won't know that, that's something that I can slip into my writing that helps patients understand what they're getting into. And sometimes, people don't, as a writer, may not have that insight. And not that that's a bad thing, but it's just a little extra thing that I can provide as a former practitioner.
That was so captivating, Rennie. Thank you so much for explaining that for us. Could you rewind and tell us about how you transitioned from being a pharmacist and also being a medical writer currently? Can you share us that story?
Yeah, sure. As I said, I had students all through those 30 years of practice. We spent a lot of time doing writing projects, just different things. Sometimes case reviews, sometimes disease state reviews, assessments of clinical studies in a summary form, to be able to communicate not only verbally but in writing how certain things would be applicable in their practice and applicable to patients. So we did a lot of professional writing. Newspaper articles that I did a lot to inform public information that was important. So I did a lot of that. And so I really enjoyed that. And I'm the type of person that I really love to read, recent studies, information about clinical trials, things like that. And I was always trying to figure out ways to communicate that with my patients in the written form, in addition to just the information about the drug. They want to know things like, after this drug has been approved for a few years, is it really still as effective as they thought it would be? Or are there major side effects that I need to be aware of that didn't show up in clinical trials? So being able to communicate that with my patients through written form, I did that quite a bit. And it was just because I enjoyed doing that. So I thought to myself, wow, I would really love to do this as a career. So in 2021, after 30 years of practice, I felt to myself, now may be the time that I could move forward with that. So I took a course with Emma Hitt Nichols. At the time, she was out of Atlanta, but now she's out of Jacksonville, Florida. And I learned a lot about AMA style, how to write needs assessments, how to do an article summarized, like to summarize clinical studies, different aspects of medical writing, which I thought was very interesting because it gave me information specifically as a medical writer, not just as a pharmacist. So it was very good for me to see that side of it and how I could enhance my writing with the type of professional medical writer standards that you need to meet. So, and I really enjoyed that. And I did follow her advice and started to market myself to doing needs assessments. And I did do needs assessment for quite a while, about a year and a half. And during that time, I also got involved in patient-facing medical information, and also disease state summaries for practicing clinicians like pharmacists, nurses, doctors. So I did some of that, but I really feel like my passion is giving information to patients because I know I can see how it affects them, how that helps them to be able to make good decisions for themselves, because patients want to have control over their own decisions. So I try to be that information giver, let the patient be the decision maker, and try to make sure I put all that information that they need to make good decisions in my writing.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much for sharing your journey to us. That was so spiritual. I was so engaged, when you shared that story. And so tell us your challenges you faced when, you know, you're transitioning to medical writing. What are the challenges you faced and how did you conquer them? And what are the challenges you're facing right now?
Well, I think probably the main challenge that I faced, and I'm sure that other people getting into medical writing face, is the money aspect. You have to decide, what money that you need to come in to pay your bills. Um, but you also have to balance that, at least from a practitioner standpoint, the fact that at first you're not going to make that doctor salary or that pharmacist salary or that nurse salary. So I did have about 6 months worth of salary saved up. So that helped me have that cushion. So I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but it did help take the stress off. And I felt like I could pick and choose different projects that were wide and varied to give me some experience. So I think it just opens up the door to help you be able to have that cushion to get you through some of those rough spots. Plus, clients sometimes don't pay for 45 to 60, sometimes to 90 days. So you may have done a really great paying project, but it may take 90 days to get that payment. So you kind of have to have that cushion to maybe help you get through those times you're waiting for payments. My other challenges, I think, have been dealing with I don't want to call it ghosting because that's like a common term that you hear, but when you contact somebody and they're very interested in you writing, but then you don't hear from them from a while, it's like you almost want to take it personal. But I've learned that it's really not going to be personal. You need to expect that when you contact somebody and they do seem interested in your services, they just may not have something at that time. You have to wait for that to come. And so I built a list of people that had been, responded to my queries in a positive way, and seemed like they had some really good projects that they would love for you to work on, and just keep in touch with them. So monthly, I try to touch base with those people like, hey, I'm still here. just checking to see if you have anything available that you want me to do. Give them an example maybe of a recent project that you've worked on. Just describe it. You don't necessarily have to like send them, a 30-page manuscript. You just give them a summary, like, hey, I just worked on this. I found it to be very fascinating. Just a little bit of something to draw them in, give them a little bit of an idea of what you like to do. And just keep at that. And I've gotten clients from that. And you may not hear from them again for months, but it's just that you have to keep that iron in the fire, so to speak, just to try to get them involved with you and familiar with you so that they can say, oh, I've got this project, this would be really great for you. And then, they will contact you. Sometimes I wouldn't get responses from people because they didn't like how much I was charging, and that's not anything personal. It's just that didn't meet their budget. Which is okay with me because I want to be able to pick and choose those types of things. I don't want to try to bend too much to what they want to pay, because of course they don't want to pay, as much as you want to get paid. So you have to be judicious in that. And then I also had some times where I was, like one day I'd be working with somebody, they would say, oh yeah, I'm going to send you the information. The next day you didn't hear anything. Next day you didn't hear anything. So then you contact and find out somebody got another job and it's doing something totally different. And so you can't always have it in your head that person's always going to be there to give you work. So that's why you really have to not only keep in touch with that person, but their supervisor, or other people in the organization to kind of get that flow going. And that, that takes some time to learn those things as a freelancer. And at first I would get kind of upset about it because I'm like one of these people like, I'm in a routine, I'm constant, but they, this business is not constant. So you just have to have a mindset of everything's new every day, and don't take it for granted that you're going to always have that assignment in place. So those would be something that a new freelancer may discourage them. So you just have to keep that in mind and just keep at it. Keep doing what will work, because it'll eventually give you new clients.
Absolutely, absolutely. You just narrated the main point, and thank you so much for explaining that first.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, what are the most important skills and qualities you think is needed to be a successful medical writer? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you need to know what appropriate sources for the type of work that you're doing, what's acceptable and what is not, because that really boils down to how people perceive you as far as like what you want to present. So primary sources like an actual study, not necessarily somebody else's summary of the study. You could look at that to, give yourself a little bit broader perspective, but actually looking at the study, maybe that's giving the information, is important to like really look at that and make sure that you're reporting that information correctly and without bias. And that's difficult to practice because you have to think of it as you're the information giver. You don't want your opinion in there. And so that's something that you really have to work at. And that's really important to me because that really boils down to your integrity, like what you feel is important. You want to get the facts out. You want to report it in a way that people understand it, and you want it to be done efficiently. And because you're going to be moving through projects. So those things are super important. Also, I think soft skills are really important. Being able to talk to people, encouraging people. In this business, you don't get a lot of encouragement sometimes from clients, but you can encourage your client because they like that. They need that. So, doing things to encourage them, like if they send you a summary saying, wow, this is really a great summary. I really like that you gave me these things because that's going to help me. That's wonderful. And then letting them know, like, I also would love to see this, this, and this. When you hand them something encouraging, they're more likely to work with you because they want to be around people or hear from people that are encouraging. And then I also learned that sometimes you have to, I don't want to say fire, but pick and choose your clients because life is too short to be bashed or made to feel not good. So, being able to tactfully say, hey, it's been a great experience, but I need to, move forward and do something different. And sometimes that's hard because you want to keep your clients, but if it's something that's dragging you down, you want to be able to weed through those and work at getting different clients. So those skills are really important as a freelancer because you don't, like, if you give in every time to every assignment that you're given, you're going to end up doing things that you don't enjoy. You're not going to be able to make your deadlines, and deadlines are important. You don't want to be like late with your assignments. And if you don't feel like it's something that you enjoy, or you're not going to get any positive feedback on, it's going to be harder for you to do that. So I just encourage new freelancers to work on those types of skills. And it's not going to come overnight. You just have to practice and focus on, certain things that are important to you.
Yeah, it's a gradual process. You'll
Mm-hmm.
get there. Absolutely.
Yes.
You'll
Yes.
get there. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for, illustrating that for us. That was an amazing explanation. So, what do you think is the most, the problems majorly that medical writers are facing right now? What do you think is the major problem, and how do you think they're going to overcome them?
Well, I think there are some issues with AI. But I think there can be two sides to that. AI can really help you become more efficient, but it also is helping your clients be more efficient. I don't think that AI is going to take our jobs because, we need that human touch. AI doesn't see patients, so just having that experience to help communicate information to patients is a skill that medical writers bring. But I think the advantage that you can get from AI is if you can learn how to use it appropriately, and like the different tools that are out there to use them can help you, can be a benefit to you in your practice. It's just you're going to have to put that time in to learn it, and it does take time. So just being able to do that is a challenge. I also really think that the information that's out there that we don't know if it could be credible, or if it can be correctly reported. So again, that's what I was saying earlier about making sure that your sources that you're getting your information from come from legit sources, and that have been peer reviewed, and that you understand what those studies or different analyses mean, and how that can be applied, and how patients and practitioners can apply it. And so that does take some working at. It took me a little while to like kind of really wade through like what's an appropriate source that is going to be good for the audience that I'm targeting, and what are just sources that are off limits. And so that's going to take some practice, I think, for new medical writers. Even seasoned ones, it's continually changing. And so being able to kind of wade through that information overload to find out what is legit and what is helpful can be a real challenge, I think, for our profession right now. Payment definitely is always a challenge. Um, you have to continually be marketing yourself, getting new clients, trying to seek out new things to be able to make yourself, have that edge. So that takes a lot of work. You have to really work at it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you've been an amazing speaker, Renee, thus far, and I believe that the audience is gonna grab something from this conversation we have right now. So, can you share, a memory or a project that demonstrates the impact of good medical writing, on the medical industry? Could you share an amazing project you had that impacted your medical writing journey?
I think it was doing a needs assessment for my community to get a drug-free community grant. Those grants are incredibly important for communities. It's helped us to hire people to work on substance misuse, not only to support people that are in recovery, but more importantly, prevention, starting prevention at the middle school level up into the high school. And unfortunately, we're getting more into like elementary age children being exposed to drug abuse and substance abuse overall. So just being able to write that and contribute that to my community and have our community earn that grant, it was like $125,000 per year over 10 years that we earned that grant. And I mean, it wasn't just my writing that did it, it was like the work of the whole coalition, but being able to write that information of what the group gathered and put it together in a professional way to present it to the federal level was just something that I'm very proud of, and I feel that reward in my heart to know that maybe what we're doing as a coalition can help some children in our area have a better outcome than some of their peers.
Amazing. That was an interesting project you had
Mm-hmm.
in the past. That's great. That's really great. So, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
As a medical writer, there are specific tools and softwares that find particularly useful in your career as a medical writer. So, could you share some, tools
Mm-hmm.
or some softwares you're using for the audience to grab?
Yeah, I'd love to, because when I first started, I really had to search, to find things that I could use, because there's a lot of things out there that you pay for and maybe you don't need. So I'd hate for people to buy things and not, spend their hard-earned money and not use them. Well, of course, for actual just writing, I use Word. I also use Adobe. And I use Adobe to help unlock documents as well as highlight parts of a document that I'm using in my writing, because you sometimes when you have writing that needs to be fact checked, you need to have that ability to mark up documents and send that with your writing so they can see the information where you're pulling it from. And so that was well worth the investment for me. I also use Pro Writing Aid. That is it's like a grammar check. It also has the ability to rephrase a sentence. So like if you have a sentence that you just really having a struggle with, like this doesn't make sense, and I'm not really sure how to arrange it, it gives you ideas. So that's definitely worth the investment for me. I don't use it to write an entire document because it can have privacy implications, because a lot of those software that's on the internet, you have to be careful what you put in them. But like one sentence without any identifying information, it can help you word it or phrase it, and then you can apply it in your document how you need it applied. I also use Chat GPT-4. I do have the $20 a month prescription subscription to it, and I do use it. I use it mainly to help me with the level of language. So for instance, if I need to write a document to an 8th grade level or a 9th grade level, I can put sentences or phrases in there and ask it to give me ideas of a 9th grade or 10th grade, whatever it is. And it will give you those options. And again, recently ChatGPT-4 has it where you can put more information in it and ask it to not share. But I still am cautious about what I put in there. I try to de-identify what I'm putting in there, and then I can put it back in my document with the information specific. I also use Spreadsheet to keep track of documents. I used to use EndNote for references, but I found it to be very difficult. So I'm still working on better ways for managing references. So other people may find it to be very helpful, but for the documents that I write, I don't have like hundreds of references. The max maybe 30. So to me, it wasn't worth all the maneuvering for that many references. And I think those are like my main, and there are some websites that I really use a lot. I use, I know this sounds funny, but I use Word Hippo. It's a thesaurus website. So if I'm looking for like a different word for something, I'll use that. I use Merriam-Webster Medical Dictionary because in the AMA style, if you have a word that you're not sure if it's supposed to be hyphenated or if it's supposed to be one word or two separate words, if you type it into Merriam-Webster Medical Dictionary, how it comes up is going to be the way that you want it AMA style, because AMA style says in their manual that if we don't have it specified in AMA style, it'll be in Merriam-Webster. So that's usually what I fall back on for that. And like I use a lot of the NIH patient information sites. So like if there's cancer information that I need that's more patient friendly, I'll look there. So those are all my go-to things that I use. I do, of course, use PubMed to do searches. I use Google Scholar, and I also use Google News. So like when I'm writing about a drug specifically, I'll Google it in Google News first to see like what's being reported about it recently, and that kind of helps me figure out if there's something I need to focus on for the reader. So.
Amazing, Renee. Thank you so much for that. That was using amazing tools there, and no wonder your writing is amazing, really amazing. Thank you for that. So, in 3 minutes, right? Why do we write? Tell us what are the reasons behind becoming a very good writer. What are the major reasons behind becoming a medical writer in 3 minutes? What do you have to say about that?
Well, for me, it was a couple of things. First of all, I love to inform people about their medicines and their disease states because they don't get that when they go to the doctor. Not always. I'm not saying, every doctor's like that, but overall, doctors are busy. So, um, and then for myself, I just love to learn about things. I love to learn new things. It's just very, and professionally inspiring to me to learn new things, to see things be studied and changed to help people live healthier lives.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Renee. You nailed it. Absolutely, you nailed it. So yeah, can you tell us, do you know the reason why, writing sometimes causes anxiety in writers, especially medical writers? Do you have any idea about that?
So you're asking why it can cause anxiety? Is that,
Yeah, absolutely.
or like stress? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Do you know
Okay.
any kind of thoughts on that?
Well, I think most of the time my anxiety has been along the lines of getting a deadline. Like estimating how much time that you need to put toward a project and then getting into it and finding out, oh, yeah, I gotta have more time on this. So that can cause a lot of anxiety when you don't, really know how much time that you're going to need to put towards something and then your deadline gets tighter. But that just comes with time of being able to recognize like, okay, hey, I'm going to need to set aside this many hours. The other thing that really makes kind of gives me anxiety is I can't be on the computer for 12 hours at a time. Um, so because it bothers my eyes. I have of course, as you can see, I have glasses, but I have very not good eyesight. So being on the computer for long periods of time, it just really increases my anxiety because I have a hard time seeing, have a hard time reading, and then I get to the point where I can't really gather my thoughts because I'm tired and overwhelmed. So I've just learned that I have to take frequent breaks. I have to do work in shorter chunks. And, working as a pharmacist all those years, I was used to working like, 12, 14 hours straight through. But I, tended to forget that I wasn't, having such mental concentration along with the eye, on the computer the whole time. So I think for new writers, it's like just figuring out those things that maybe you didn't think of when you want to start and how they impact you. Like some people don't want to sit at a computer for 12 hours. So what are you going to do to figure that out for yourself, and be empowered to do that for yourself. So
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Um, these are valid explanations you put out there, and I believe that the audience will greatly appreciate this discussion we have right now. So, anyways, tell us how to sharpen our medical writing skills and master our craft today. What are your thoughts on that?
well, you always got to have a goal to learn. So if it's patient information that you want to write, either disease states or medicines, you got to figure out what you need to learn more of. And so networking really helps that. LinkedIn is a perfect example. Just get on there and find out who writes patient facing medical information and ask them some questions, message them and say, hey, I see that you do this. Where did you go to learn? Or did you take a course? Or is there something I can read? Or is there a book that I can get that has examples. So just, getting somebody with experience, networking with them. AMWA is a perfect organization to become a member of. That was one of the first organizations I joined when I became a medical writer, just because they do have a lot of resources. You can look on their website. If you're a freelancer, I highly recommend taking the freelance membership, because you get access to other freelancers asking questions and answering questions. So that does help, because you can read about what other people are going through. So, it's really important to learn what it is that you need to do. So if you have gaps in that, in your knowledge, you got to fill those in. Some things you're going to learn on the job, but there are ways that you can learn the basics. So for me, when I started, the AMA style was really important for me to take a class on. And so that I took that. And then the 6-week course I took with Emma Hitt Nichols, just about other types of writing. So I figured out what I need to know and started there. And then the nice thing about taking a course with somebody who is going to talk to you a little bit about marketing, they're going to give you the important way to get started, like how to get started with marketing yourself. So making samples of your writings, posting those on your LinkedIn site, just learning about maybe new drugs, or things that you can write about, posting those on LinkedIn. Some people do websites. I decided not to do a website because I really got a lot of contacts and things through LinkedIn to start with. Now, some people will disagree that you've got to have a website, but I did get a lot of connections and a lot of clients from LinkedIn. And then once you get going, then you can decide if you want to spend money on a website. I just hate for people to spend a lot of money when they're first trying to get started, and it's hard because you got to keep up a website. So that's going to be time that you're going to have to do. And so sometimes it's just better to spend that time on LinkedIn and, doing things on LinkedIn that can get you out there. So those are things that will help you to get started.
That was awesome, Renee. You've been an amazing speaker thus far, and I really appreciate you coming up you know, as a guest speaker for my YouTube channel. So before we round off this session, what are your advice to aspiring medical writers out there?
Well, each person has their own goals, so make sure that you have those in front of you, so that you can remind yourself what you're doing. Because you're going to get things thrown at you as far as, oh, here, do this project, or can you do this project? But if you really try to stick to, what your interests are and what your goals in life are, you're going to be a lot happier. If you just try to do things that come along because you have to do it, or because that, you feel like you have to have the work. I'm not saying don't ever do that. I mean, if it seems interesting to you, you want to go for it, then go for it. But if you get into that place of just doing things that come along, then you're not going to be doing the things that you really like to do, and that will not motivate you. So you want to really keep that in mind, because to be a medical writer, you have to really put the work in. You have to really make the effort. You're the one that's having to keep yourself going, because you're living it. And if you're not living your best medical writer life, you're not going to want to go there every day. So put your goals down. Understand it's not going to happen overnight. You're going to have a plan to move yourself through. You're not going to be the rich guy out of the gates. You're going to have to learn that, to build up your income as you go through. So if you have realistic expectations of what medical writing is and that what you can do there, I think that will help you start, and then you can build on that. I think people get discouraged too quickly. Like I talked about earlier with, not really understanding how the ebb and flow of clients goes. That can really cause you to get discouraged quickly unless you have that in your head already. And taking, a class with somebody that has that experience can give you some confidence and give you a way to start so that you're not just doing everything from scratch, because you don't have to. There's people out there who've done it and that will share their experience with you.
Thank you so much for that piece of advice. It's a great pleasure talking with you today, Rennie, and I believe that the audience have some questions to ask, and I'm gonna put some links, for you to reach out to Rennie, um, if you have questions and all such of you. So thank you so much for helping in, Rainy. It's a great pleasure of having you. So if you love this content, do well to subscribe, like, share to your network, and also comment. Support me. It's really hard to do all these things, but your support keeps me moving. So thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been wonderful to get to know you too. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Stop recording.